Today, we're diving into a political showdown that has been igniting debate across the country. In today's segment, we're exploring a clash that's not only personal, but also emblematic of a much larger ideological battle over financial regulation and consumer protection in America. At the center of this storm is former President Donald Trump, whose latest remarks have once again put the spotlight on Senator Elizabeth Warren and the agency she helped create, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB. Over the next several minutes, we'll break down exactly what happened, why the CFPB has become such a contentious issue, and what this controversy might mean for both consumers and businesses moving forward. We'll also hear from experts in the field, look at how the public is reacting, and examine the future implications of this high-stakes debate. So, let's get right into it. It all began during a recent public event when former President Trump launched another scathing attack aimed squarely at Senator Elizabeth Warren. Known for her long-standing defense of consumer rights and her critical role in establishing the CFPB following the 2008 financial crisis, Warren has been a fierce advocate for protecting everyday Americans from predatory financial practices. In response, Trump didn't hesitate to strike back, using a nickname that has become all too familiar in his political rhetoric. During his speech, Trump once again referred to Senator Warren with the controversial moniker Pocahontas, a term that has repeatedly surfaced whenever he seeks to undermine her credibility regarding her claims about Native American heritage. But it wasn't just the name-calling that drew attention. Trump also doubled down on his criticism of the CFPB, labeling it a disaster for businesses and pledging his support for efforts aimed at dismantling or curbing its power. This exchange is far from an isolated incident. It's part of a broader, ongoing feud that pits the principles of robust consumer protection against arguments for deregulation and minimal government intervention in the financial sector. While Trump's comments have drawn harsh criticism from supporters of the CFPB, they have also resonated strongly with those who believe that the agency's broad authority is an example of government overreach. This controversy isn't simply about personal animosity. It's about the fundamental role of regulation in our economy and the balance between safeguarding consumers and fostering a business-friendly environment. To fully understand the intensity of this debate, we need to take a closer look at the CFPB itself, what it is, why it was created, and why it remains such a polarizing institution. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau was established in 2011. As a key component of the Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. Born out of the urgency to prevent a repeat of the financial devastation that occurred during the 2008 crisis, the CFPB was tasked with a singular mission: to protect consumers from unfair, deceptive, or abusive practices by banks, lenders, and other financial institutions. Since its inception, the agency has made significant strides in its mandate. It has imposed billions of dollars in fines on companies found to be engaging in deceptive practices, and it has returned over $21 billion to consumers through various enforcement actions. For many, this record is a testament to the effectiveness of the CFPB in holding powerful financial institutions accountable. Senator Warren, in particular, has been one of its most vocal champions, arguing that the agency is a vital bulwark against corporate greed and predatory financial behavior. However, not everyone shares this view. Critics of the CFPB contend that the agency wields too much power with insufficient oversight. They argue that its broad regulatory authority stifles business innovation, discourages lending, and creates a cumbersome regulatory environment that burdens both small and large financial institutions alike. For these critics, including many conservative lawmakers and former officials like the agency's previous acting director, the CFPB represents an overreach of governmental power, a symbol of a regulatory regime that places undue restrictions on economic growth. This ideological divide over the role of regulation versus deregulation has been a long-standing flashpoint in American politics. On one side, you have advocates for robust consumer protections who see the CFPB as a necessary safeguard in a market that has, time and again, demonstrated its capacity for abuse. On the other side, there are those who believe that the free market can and should be allowed to operate with minimal interference, arguing that excessive regulation only serves to hinder economic progress. To shed more light on this complex issue, let's turn to some expert perspectives. Analysts and economists from both sides of the debate offer compelling arguments about the role of the CFPB in our financial system. On the side of strong consumer protection, many experts argue that the CFPB is indispensable. One prominent financial analyst recently stated, "The CFPB exists to protect everyday Americans from being exploited by financial institutions. Without its rigorous oversight, we'd be vulnerable to a repeat of the predatory lending and deceptive practices that contributed to the 2008 financial crisis." Proponents of the agency point to numerous cases where the CFPB's intervention has not only provided redress for wronged consumers, but also acted as a deterrent against future misconduct by financial giants. They argue that without such oversight, the balance of power would tilt dangerously in favor of corporations, leaving consumers exposed to unchecked abuses. Conversely, opponents of the CFPB present a starkly different picture. Economic policy experts critical of the agency contend that its broad regulatory mandate comes at a steep cost to businesses, especially smaller financial institutions. One such expert remarked, "The CFPB operates with little oversight, allowing it to impose sweeping financial rules that often lack accountability. This kind of regulatory overreach can suffocate small lenders, stifle innovation, and ultimately hinder economic growth." These critics are particularly vocal about the agency's impact on businesses that are already operating on thin margins. They argue that while consumer protection is important, it should not come at the expense of creating an environment where businesses are unable to thrive. This divergence in expert opinion is reflective of a broader debate that transcends this specific incident. It's a debate about the appropriate level of government intervention in the economy. A debate that has significant implications for both policymaking and everyday financial transactions. Whether you lean towards greater oversight to protect consumers or prefer a more laissez-faire approach that prioritizes business freedom, there is no denying that the issue strikes at the very heart of how we manage risk and accountability in our financial system. As with any heated political debate, public reaction has been swift and polarized. Social media platforms have become the battleground where opinions are being aired loud and clear, reflecting the deep divisions that this controversy has stirred. On one side of the spectrum, supporters of former President Trump have rallied behind his call for dismantling or significantly curtailing the power of the CFPB. Many on social media argue that the agency has grown too powerful, and they see Trump's comments as a much-needed critique of what they view as excessive government intervention in the economy. Some posts even call for the complete shutdown of the Bureau, contending that its stringent regulations have hampered business growth and limited consumer access to credit. In contrast, Senator Warren's supporters have been equally vocal in their defense of both her record and the CFPB. Many argue that the agency's role in protecting consumers from predatory financial practices cannot be understated. One Twitter user wrote, "Elizabeth Warren helped create an agency that has saved billions for everyday Americans. Trump's attack isn't just personal, it's an attempt to undermine critical consumer protections." Another social media post emphasized that the CFPB has played a key role in holding financial institutions accountable, adding, "Without the CFPB, we risk a return to the kind of financial abuses that nearly led to another crisis." This divergence in public opinion illustrates just how charged this debate is. For many, the discussion is not just about regulatory policy. It's about the broader vision of America's financial future. On one hand, there's a call for a free market approach that minimizes government intervention. On the other hand, there's a demand for robust oversight to prevent abuses that can devastate individual lives and the economy as a whole. The clash over the CFPB is emblematic of a larger struggle between two fundamentally different visions of economic policy. It highlights the challenge of balancing regulation with innovation and underscores the fact that decisions made in Washington have real-world implications for millions of Americans. Looking ahead, the controversy surrounding the CFPB and the broader debate it represents could have significant implications for the future of financial regulation in the United States. The political landscape in Washington is in a state of flux, and the fate of the CFPB could very well depend on upcoming shifts in power. Currently, many Republican lawmakers are advocating for major reforms that would either drastically curtail the CFPB's authority or eliminate it altogether. Proposals on the table include restructuring the agency's leadership, making its funding subject to tighter congressional controls, and even considering a complete abolition of the Bureau. Should these reforms gain traction, we could see a fundamental reworking of how consumer protection is enforced in the financial sector. On the other side, if the balance of power in Washington continues to favor those who support robust regulatory oversight, we may see efforts to not only preserve the CFPB, but also to expand its role. For proponents of consumer protection, the agency is a critical line of defense against the kinds of abuses that can lead to economic instability. In this scenario, the focus would be on strengthening the CFPB's capabilities, ensuring it has the resources and authority to act decisively against financial malfeasance. This isn't just a debate about regulatory philosophy. It's a fight over the future of America's financial system. At its core, the discussion raises important questions. Should regulators have broad authority to police financial institutions, or should businesses be given greater freedom to operate without what some see as burdensome oversight? The answer to this question will not only shape policy in the coming years, but will also have a direct impact on the everyday lives of millions of Americans. For consumers, the stakes are particularly high. The CFPB has been credited with preventing exploitative practices and ensuring that financial institutions are held accountable. Without such oversight, there is a real risk that consumers could once again become vulnerable to predatory lending, deceptive practices, and other abuses that have historically led to economic crises. For businesses, especially smaller lenders and financial service providers, the debate is equally consequential. Excessive regulation can hamper growth, restrict innovation, and make it more challenging to compete in a global market. Striking the right balance between protecting consumers and fostering a dynamic, competitive financial sector is a delicate task, one that will require careful consideration by policymakers on both sides of the aisle. In many ways, the battle over the CFPB is a microcosm of larger ideological conflicts that have been simmering in American politics for years. It forces us to confront the question of how much power should be granted to regulatory agencies and what mechanisms should be in place to ensure that such power is exercised responsibly and effectively. As the debate unfolds, it's clear that the outcome will have profound implications, not only for the future of financial regulation, but also for the overall health and stability of the American economy. So, where do we go from here? As we've seen, the clash between former President Trump and Senator Warren is more than just a personal spat. It's a flashpoint in a broader ideological battle over the role of government in regulating the financial sector. Whether you view the CFPB as a critical protector of consumer rights or as an example of overzealous government intervention, one thing is clear. This debate is far from over, and its impact will be felt for years to come. We'd love to know what you think about this ongoing controversy. Do you believe that the CFPB is essential for safeguarding consumers against financial abuses? Or do you think that its power has grown too vast, stifling the free market and hindering business growth? And what are your thoughts on the rhetoric used in this clash? Are these remarks a legitimate critique of regulatory overreach, or are they simply part of the political theater that has come to define our times? Please share your opinions and insights in the comments below. Your perspective is invaluable as we continue to explore and unpack these complex issues. If you found today's breakdown informative and thought-provoking, please give this video a like. And consider subscribing for more in-depth coverage of the stories that matter. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you're always in the loop on the latest developments in our political and economic landscape. Thank you for spending this time with us. We'll be back with more news, analysis, and expert opinions to help you navigate the issues that shape our world. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.